Okay, I think we're starting. I'm down here in the basement in my grubbies. I have a pointer here, and I'm going to show you some of my... I don't have much for artifacts that I've collected over the years. I wasn't able to keep them, and none of them are like really super high quality stuff or anything like that. So I'll just show you a little bit. I've got some fakes. I've got some I made, which I didn't make as a fake to put out and fool the world or something like that. It's just years ago. And when I say years ago, I mean probably more than 30 years ago. I did some knapping, trying to make arrowheads, and did a few things out of glass. Maybe some white stone, that was about it. This is an example of a flake. I was given this, a fake. I was given this by a friend, and he told me it was an arrow shaft straightener from days of old, where they would make their arrows, and then if they weren't straight, they would maybe heat them or moisten them or something, and then put them in here to bend them straight. And such things as that existed. And then it has a little line in it here, which supposedly they sharpen their arrows or ground certain parts of their arrows down, which they did. But again, this is a fake. For example, tried to make Indian symbols here, which I've done, but not trying to fool people. That's a little effort at it. Here's a dead giveaway for a fake. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. Owl. He's in the inset here. Oops. Mark that up. Anyway, it's supposed to be an owl. There, you might be able to see it. And that's not a Native American style or anything. So anyway, then there's some lines and stuff on it, a little sun symbol and different things. But I think that's a fake. So we'll get into the arrowheads. Now, this stuff was given to me that I'm not sure, or I wasn't sure about. And people, they may or may not have known they were fake. Here's supposed to be an old arrowhead. You can see it was just a chipped piece of triangular rock. And then supposedly they put serrated, somebody put an edge on it by Flint Knapping. The only problem is these edges, when you look at them where they're chipped out, they're not the same patina as the rock itself. They're whiter, which shows that it's modern chipping. Again, the lighting in here isn't too good. Now, some of my terminology might not be right. I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm going to call these next few things thumb knives or scrapers. Here's an example. Serrated edges. This was probably made from a chip where somebody was making an arrow, or maybe they just knocked a chip off to make this specifically, whatever. And they could cut or scrape leather or whatever with it. Here's a little better example. Flat on one side, got serrated edges, it's pretty worn. The other side, call them thumb scrapers, thumb knives. Here's a very crude one that was worked. I think those two I showed you are real. I'm sure they are. This has got some evidence of humans working on it here. And this was just a utility thing, possibly for scraping or cutting. Here you can see the knapping ridges. Well, you really can't. You can see the knapping ridges that were put in there by whoever was working on it. And on one side is the cortex, the original outer covering of the stone. So this was just supposed to be a utility thing. They didn't care how clumsy it looked. Here's another worked piece. Obviously, same thing, just generally call it a thumb knife. They could have cut with it, scraped with it. Here's another piece, pretty crude. It was made from good material as far as knapping goes. You can see some flaking there. And here's, again, they left some of the original outside of the rock, the cortex, on there because they were just going for utility. They didn't care. When I start making arrowheads, it's going to be kind of a sad thing because people nowadays that nap, modern nappers, most of them, they want to go for the artistic arrowheads, real thin and everything. What I'm going to be doing is just to try to duplicate some arrowheads like you might find. And not that there weren't some fine arrowheads made thousands of years ago. Maybe I'll be making this sort of thing. This is real. I'm going to call it an arrowhead, spearhead. It could have been a knife. You see how this edge is a little more bowed and this edge is straight. So this could have been hafted into something and used as a knife. So it's probably not really a spear point, or what we call everything arrowheads. This is something that modern nappers don't tolerate. You can call it a turtleback. They didn't leave stuff like that on there, or they try not to. But the ancients, nappers, most of them, a lot of them were just doing it for utility. They needed an arrow, they needed it now. Now here's a better example of a finely napped arrow. The tip is not real sharp. It's probably used and knocked off. The base is, I don't know the style. There's different styles, but you can see the knapping on there where it was worked. So that's probably one of my better examples of a genuine arrowhead. And here's another one. It has some damage on the tip and the base here. The tip is not sharp. So this was used and lost. You can see the tip, if I can align this. The tip, there was no effort to resharpen it. So they would have taken something like this and resharpened it had they found it. So they either just lost it or it stuck in an animal, the animal ran off, fell out later, whatever. Here's another real artifact. You can see this is, if the camera will show, you can see the flakes where they would pressure flake it on one side and it would go all the way across the piece and thin it down. So that's a good example, even though it's broken. The base is also damaged. Excuse me. So the only thing I have going for me when I start napping is that there are some crude examples out there, and I can say, that's just like the real thing. Here's another broken one. You can see the pressure places where they took. Now this is actually still sharp. If you hold it like this, I'm not saying it's going to slice through my finger right now or something, but you can feel like, well, I don't really want to press on that too hard. So there's tip damage and base damage. So again, who knows the history of it? It's fascinating to think back. Somebody made that and used it. You know, here's more of an example. I could probably hope to make something this thin. It's not considered thin. It's very, the tip is missing, damaged. Base is damaged. Camera doesn't show the pressure flaking on the edges too well. but you can kind of see it definitely worked. So that's real. Here's another one that I feel is genuine, smaller. Now this may have been a pretty good size arrow when it started out, but they would reuse them and sharpen them over and over and over because that was easier than chipping a whole new arrowhead out of a rock. Here's a pretty rough one. It's got some damage to it on the side and the tip. Excuse me. I'm not going to show all of these. I was going to, but I'm just not going to. This would have been a really, really nice knife or a huge spear. The tip is missing, would have gone up. The base is busted off. There's some evidence of the edge being worked, and you can see the pressure flaking going across the piece. They flaked on one end and hit it just right, and it went all the way across and thinned it down. Well, let me skip to a few other things here. Now, the ones I made years ago, I've still got some of them left. I just flaked out of glass. That's one right there. Then I've got some smaller ones. Here's another one. I don't really remember flaking this one. This may have been something that was found or given to me. But I don't think it's original by any means, even though some of the original ones were thick like that. Bird points, I'll show you a few bird points. This, I feel, they're hard to hold, is a real bird point. So that's your actual arrowhead right there. It went on arrows, and they would have. Just because we call it a bird point doesn't mean they can only shoot birds with it. Here's something that you can call a blunt. I believe this is real. Because it could have started out as a real arrowhead, and they just worked it down to where they got it down here. They said, well, we can still use it because we'll hit a rabbit with that, or whatever, bird, and it'll still take them out. So like I said, they used their stuff much as they could. This poor guy has apparently been traveling around creeks or something for a long, long time. Pretty rough shape. Here's what I consider to be another real one. Real arrowhead, not a fake. You can see they're not thin. Not all the old ones were thin. They had different skill levels, of course. Break the trend here and show you something I found here. We have very poor rock in this area where I'm at in South Dakota for flint knapping. You have to have chert or obsidian or something that's got some chert in it. You don't have to, but I found this, and this is chert. The reason I know is the end of it. It's just almost like butterscotch. It's pure. Right there at that part, there's no flaws in it. See that? Pretty good stone. Very hard, very heavy. I think this was used as a tool simply because of the damage on the ends. It was found in a creek. Let's see. On this other side, I can show you. You might be able to tell that there's some possible human efforts to make flakes and shape this here. Now, it could be said, well, it just rotated in the creek and it got busted on both ends. So then my question would be, why are the edges completely untouched? Looks to me like somebody was using this as a tool of some sort. Another one of my points I did years ago from glass. I've got a few, but I'll just show you one more. That I made. And then I've got some smaller bird points here that are real. This one has the tip broken. It's pretty small. I got to answer a call. I had a phone call and it said that it would start filming again after I got done with the phone, and it didn't. But anyway, so I'm going to try to show you some bird points. They get awful small, and I have trouble holding this, and I can't get it to the camera right, so bear with me. I was going to bring some tape and put this on tape. I don't know if you can see that little guy or not. That's a real little bird point. They got ridiculously small. Some of them, they're all different sizes that they come in. Well, I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to make another little film on what I'm going to call possible artifacts, because I've seen people on the internet, they'll find a stone that's shaped in a certain way, and they say, well, that was obviously shaped by man thousands of years ago, when probably the creek just did it. But there are some questionable ones, and I could be wrong, and they could be right. It's just that I think they get a little bit. I wouldn't find a rock that looked like it had a bird head on it, kind of, and say, here's a effigy, a bird effigy, made by Igor 7,000 years ago, you know. I just don't think they can be that sure of that stuff. So I'll just give you one more view of my little board here. And that'll cover this. Pretty soon as the weather changes, I'll be able to go out to the creek and get some stone. And then I'm sure it'll be a little ridiculous, my efforts to make arrowheads. And I said I was going to go away, but I want to show you one more thing. I don't think I showed this. This is obviously chipped away on the edges. Here's some of the cortex, the original outer part of the original rock. Here's the other side. A little bit of cortex here. All they wanted here was just a tool. Celt, or what's the other name? Okay, anyway, this could be, people have different ideas of what this sort of tool was. Some think it was just used to dig. And you can see the edges were worked, but they really weren't worked down very fine. The end isn't beat to death or anything, neither end. So who knows? Maybe they cracked nuts with it, or cracked Igor over the head with it or something, but you can see the huge flake channel coming out of it here, and then crossed here on that side, and then the flaking work here. They didn't even bother with trying to get rid of the cortex of the stone, because they accomplished what they wanted to with it. The other word I was trying to think of was adze. So you got celts and adze, different uses. And then people can have a discussion over what they want to call those things. Okay, that's it for this time. If I can turn this off.